In this episode of the How to Get on Reality TV podcast, we do a case study on exactly how to break down your casting story. Welcome to the How to Get on Reality TV podcast with Dan Giesling, where I answer your reality TV casting questions once a week. Hey everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the How to Get on Reality TV podcast. I'm really excited because we're doing something a little bit different in this episode. We're taking a audience member's essentially casting story, kind of, and I'm going to help her draw out the most important parts of her story and figure out how to do that, not only for her, but I'm going to give you guys some examples that'll let you guys do that for your story, because I know right now it's a time where a lot of people are building their casting videos and casting stories, especially north of the border in Canada. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys that I have a video course that I've created to help you do just this in depth. It includes over 5 hours of instruction. It has a checklist to keep you on track. And it also gives you real examples on how to develop and take your story even further. It's taking what we're doing on the podcast today and extending it. A lot of people have used it. It's helped a lot of people get cast on reality TV. You can check it out at howtogetonrealitytv.net/video. So that's the video course. It's over 5 hours. It tells you everything you need to do. It holds your hands. There's worksheets. There's checklists. So you don't leave anything behind, and you give yourself the best possible chance to get cast in reality TV. You can check that out by going to howtogetonrealitytv.net/video. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this week's question from Randy, which I'm not sure she knew she was going to be a case study, but she presented her story, and I couldn't help myself. So let's go ahead and listen to Randy's story.
Hi, Dan. First things first, I want to say thank you for all the resources and information you so openly supply. It has helped me immensely. My question for you, Dan, is how I can come up with the main focuses of my story. I'm a Canadian university student who was raised with strict rules and morals, but don't follow them in my everyday life. I thrive on control and have an overly sassy personality. I'm competitive, a never-wavering liberal, and I have little quirks about me, like how I will only eat pizza with a fork and a knife. I do not know how to include these things in my story and what my focus should be. Your help would be so greatly appreciated. Thanks, Dan.
All right, Randy, thank you so much for asking that question, for the kind words, and I could tell you were Canadian right away because you said resources instead of resources. But outside of that, a couple things. Now, Randy and everyone else that's listening to this in particular, I'm going to be very hard on you because if I'm not, I don't say if I'm not nice. I'm going to be nice, but I'm going to be hard on you because if I'm not honest with you about what just happened, it's not going to help you, and it's not going to help anyone else listening in terms of your story. So first thing, I could tell, and this is fine. If you have a question for the podcast, this is awesome. But I can tell you're reading that, and that's fine as long as that's not what you do in your audition video. So that's number one. The second thing, what you did in sharing your story, and a lot of people do this, Randy, and I'm focusing on you because I think this is a perfect example, and it's really going to help you if you take this and take action on it. So what Randy did in sharing her story or in trying to figure out what her casting story is, she just described a bunch of traits about herself. And what I'm going to do is go through almost everything she said, each trait she said, and help her to draw out a story or what to do with that trait. So one of the overarching themes and things to do with your audition story is to not say how you are. So don't say, I'm competitive, I'm sassy. Tell stories that demonstrate that. And you may say, hey, Dan, well, I don't know how to do that. Well, here we go. Let's go ahead and jump into Randy's story. So the first thing she said, I'm a Canadian student. Okay, right there, there's a lot of students that apply for reality TV. So you really need to differentiate yourself, because you're not saying, hey, you walk on, you're not a tightrope walker that juggles fire, and work at the circus. I can't imagine there's a lot of those people that apply for reality TV, but you can imagine there's a lot of students. So you've really got to differentiate your story. But so how do you differentiate your story as a student? Right now, what are you studying? But more importantly, why are you studying it? And how did you get into that? And what made you decide to spend all your time studying this one thing? There has to be a good story behind it or a reason. And if it's, for some people, it's like, it was the easiest thing, or, I knew I could make the most money doing it, then that's probably not the best thing for you to talk about. If it's something you're highly passionate about, like you're a vet in training, or you're a social worker, or you want to start a business because your family started from nothing, or whatever it is. If there's a real passion behind it, that's going to be a great thing to share in your casting. So there's a Canadian student. Let's get that out of the way. You said you had a strict upbringing and you had strict morals growing up, but now you don't follow them. So why is that? Why don't you follow them? Do you think your parents are crazy? How is your relationship with your parents? Do you think you're brainwashed? I don't know. These are the type of questions that I'm asking you, and that you need to ask yourself when you're describing a trait. Well, I had a strict upbringing. So what does that mean? Like, were you locked in your room and you had to eat peanut butter and jelly every single day? I don't know. I don't know what that is. What's strict for you may not be strict for other people, but you need to describe that and tell a story. Like, so I grew up and the only thing I could eat was peanut butter and jelly, okay, for my entire life. And I thought that was normal until 8th grade but whatever. I don't know. And that's the point. The casting people that look at this aren't going to know either. So it's your job not to say, hey, I had a strict upbringing. It's your job to tell a story that demonstrates your strict upbringing and then tells you why you don't agree with that and how your relationship is and any confrontation you had. And that's going to be a better example than just saying, hey, I had a strict upbringing. So that's the next thing. Next thing you said was competitive. And this is like the kiss of death when you talk about this in a reality TV audition video or your story, because tell me how you're competitive. Tell me a story in which you're competitive. Tell me a time in which you've competed. Tell me a time in which you've competed and lost. Tell me a time when you did everything you possibly could to win. That's really, really broad and vague, and a lot of people say, hey, I'm competitive. Okay, what about the time you ran a marathon untrained and you were going toe to toe and racing with this person, you started bleeding and your foot fell off and you didn't care, you kept running? Whatever it is, you got to tell a story that shows how competitive you are. And I would shy away from even saying that unless you have a really good story or a reason why you're so driven and so competitive. That's more important to explain than just say, oh, I'm competitive. So what we're doing, Randy, their stories, we're taking all these traits and I'm asking you a question that hopefully pulls out the most memorable and passionate stories so that whoever's on the other side of the camera watching your video or the other side of your audition can feel who you are, not just you telling them who you are through describing traits. The next thing you said is that you're sassy. Okay, how are you sassy? Are you sassy with guys? Are you sassy with girls? Are you sassy with your professors? Are you sassy with the person that gives you Starbucks and writes your name wrong on the cup? I don't know. But don't just say you're sassy. And I think, Randy, you're starting to get the idea, and everyone else is starting to get the idea of how important it is not to just say, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. It's telling stories that back that up. So I'm trying to give you questions that will help pull out those stories. Another thing you said was that you're a staunch liberal, and awesome. All of a sudden, someone's going to perk up about that, whether they agree with you or the other side of the coin, they disagree with you. More importantly, what I would do if I were you, I would pull up a hot topic issue in Canada right now, and I can't tell you what that is because I don't live in Canada, and I would take a broad stance and then say why you're right and why the other people are wrong, okay? And the more current the topic, the more widely publicized the topic, the more popular the topic, the more chance, the more opportunity that the person interviewing you is going to know about that topic, the better it is going to be. So the more broadband or broad spectrum, or not broad spectrum, more widely known, that's going to help you. But don't only do that if you truly believe that. So if you say, just being totally stereotypical and saying, hey, the way that Canadians produce maple syrup is inhumane because the trees, whatever, take your stance on that if you really believe in it. Don't make it, don't fabricate it, because if you're really passionate about a political issue, people are going to be able to tell. So that's really, really important. Instead of saying, hey, I'm a liberal, say, hey, I hate the people that make maple syrup because it's inhumane to the trees. Whatever it is, you need to tell a story and share a viewpoint instead of just saying, hey, I'm a liberal. So I hope that helps there. Then the last thing you mentioned was that you strive for control. And so one of the questions you may get is what happens when you don't have control? How do you react? What do you do? Do you pout? Tell me a time in which you had control taken from you. These are all questions that you can anticipate being asked. So instead of waiting for those questions to be asked, give the answers in your audition video and say, hey, like when control is taken from me, when control was taken from me in a class, when actually I wouldn't even use class, I would use something unique, but describe a specific time when power was taken from you or control was taken from you, or when you took control from someone else and why you did that and how that person reacted, and more importantly, what you did to take the control from that person. Like, these are all really, really important things. So I hope this helps. This is kind of like the beginning part of breaking down your story, and I'd mentioned the video course. This is what the first part of the video course does, and then moving forward, it helps you to tie everything together. But for you, Randy, that's where I would start. Don't put down traits, put down stories. Get to tell these stories, get to know these stories, get to understand which of the stories you tell are funny, which of them are enraging, which of them don't elicit any response whatsoever, because those are the ones you want to remove. So describe traits. Don't tell stories that describe your traits. Don't just throw your traits out there. The other thing, and you probably have heard this multiple times in the podcast, if those things aren't enough, if you don't think those things are enough, that you're a Canadian student, you had a strict upbringing, you're competitive, you're sassy, you eat pizza with a fork and knife, which is kind of memorable, you're liberal, and you strive for control. Those are all very, very basic things, and I don't think that's enough to separate you. So the next thing you need to do is you need to create a list, and you hear me say this all the time, but no one does it. Create a list of the weirdest things about yourself, the most unique things that you're embarrassed of, and those are the things that make you who you are. Because there's other sassy, liberal Canadian students that are applying for the show, but there's none that that have those things on the weird list that you maybe haven't even tapped into yet. So Randy, I hope this helps. One thing you can do if you get to a point where you're like, I keep saying these traits, just ask yourself, okay, so say, hey, I'm really goofy. Okay, so here's the two things you need to ask yourself when you're developing your story. Think of yourself as a casting producer. Tell me a time when you were goofy. So use that question, tell me a time, or use that setup, tell me a time when blank. Okay, because that'll help you develop your story. The second thing is, give me an example of a time you were goofy. Okay, so really, and stay away from traits, tell stories. You got the point, Randy. Thank you so much for letting me, break down your story. And this is what I encourage people to do when they ask questions. There's a bunch of questions that I need to ask for the podcast, but I went right to Randy because she shared very specific information and it allowed us to create this case study. I'm not going to do a case study every week, but this is a perfect time because Randy put herself out there, and I really appreciate it, Randy. I hope you take this as critical feedback and not as, down putting you. This is like me talking to you one-on-one, and other people had a chance to listen to this conversation because it's going to help other people too. But more importantly, take action on this and develop your story by telling stories. So with that being said, Randy, we're going to send you a free digital copy of my story, How a Normal Guy Got Cast on Reality TV, as a thank you for asking your question on the show. And if you want your question answered on the show, you can go to howtogetonrealitytv.net/ask. There's a mobile app where you can just record your voicemail. You can sign in the browser, record it on your computer. You can do it from your tablet. It's really easy. If you want your question asked, go to howtogetonrealitytv.net/ask. And thank you, Randy, so much for asking such a great question. All right, so that wraps up another episode of the podcast. I know the deadline is ticking down if you're in Canada to apply for a certain reality TV show. So don't wait until the last minute. Get your story out there. Start developing it, because chances are the first time you create a video, it's not going to be the best time. So if you need some additional help and you want